Hello! Today we are here to discuss Expeditions. This just came in today.
Finally!
Yes, so this is the Ironclad edition. So I think the iron comes in the fact that these are made out of metal.
The beautiful mechs.
Yes.
So every bit as gorgeous. If you've seen the metal mechs from Scythe, it's just as good.
So before we get into any further discussion of heavy metal, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you can rock along with us. Yeah. All right, Rob, what can you tell us about
All right,
this
so
game?
this is a brand new release. So technically, it got delivered yesterday, and I picked it up yesterday.
I got it today.
Yeah, he got it today because I brought it to him. So it just got delivered. So 2023 release. The rank is already at 3,452, so it's shooting up very well. Rating is 7.9. It plays 1 to 5 people. It says it's 60 to 90 minutes, but it definitely took us longer than 60 minutes. Ages 14 and up, and I think that's pretty accurate. There's some complexity to the game. Designed by the legendary Jamie Stegmaier. Art by, again, the legendary Jacob Rosalski. Published by Stonemaier Games. A lot of price points. So retail versus Ironclad. Retail on the website is $75, $105 for the Ironclad. Now Amazon, I saw it for $84 for the standard. Geek Market had a couple different prices. They had somebody selling it for standard at $70, $120 for the Ironclad. And the only retail brick and mortar I could find was Miniature Market, and it's for pre-order. And they only had the retailer version, but it was the cheapest at $68.
Okay, so as far as what you get in the box, with the Ironclad edition, you get these beautiful metal miniature figures, which are pretty big for a metal miniature.
They're huge,
good size. They feel heavy in your hand. They got a nice weight to them. They have rings to put on them, similar to what you had inside, but much bigger.
And I could not imagine, these look so good, I could not imagine painting them.
No.
Now, if you're a super good painter, maybe.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they look so good already.
Yeah.
I have no desire to paint
are
them.
very intricately carved. I mean, they're, I guess not carved, but they're cast.
Yeah, but they're so intricate.
So, yeah, they are beautiful. The tiles have a slight linen finish.
Mm-hmm.
And they're
pretty good thickness.
They're good sized tile. You have tokens that have screen printing on them for the different values, as well as your markers for your stats are all screen printed. You have different cut workers that have different shapes depending on what style they are, and different color, obviously. You've got a tray for holding your coins, although the tray has less slots than the variety of coins, which is kind of strange. But it's minor detail. The box has a really nice insert where everything's divided really well.
And plenty of space. So it looks like they left room for expansions.
Well, that's what I'm wondering, because there's inside 6 factions. And there's clearly 5 in this. But the stickers,
the expansions, they're up to 8, I think.
Yeah, there are stickers, which normally I'd count against, but this is a very clever
cool
usage of stickers. So these are not your standard stickers.
No, actually, they go on the bottom of
your board to keep it elevated enough to tuck cards under it.
Yeah, it's such a good idea. I don't know why nobody's ever thought of that before.
So there's 4 left over on that sheet. I don't know if you noticed. But the thing that would be odd is if they expected you to keep those around for a release of it.
Right.
Because, I mean, you're typically, once you've played your stickers, you're going to throw the others away.
Maybe there'll be like a super cool promo faction at Gen Con or something.
Yeah. So, I'm not sure why they would have the 4 other feet, unless it was just spares.
Right.
But, it's just coincidental. It's 4 more. But, it seems like there's another faction coming. Could be. I don't know.
I don't know. But
no insight on that.
But it's such a clever idea.
Yeah, the cards all have a really nice linen finish. They have a nice feel to them. There's a little bit of curling, not bad. So the only curling we noticed was of the cardboard is the base, the starting base, because that is curled pretty bad. It's bowed pretty bad, and it's not an inlaid board, which is where you typically see curling. So that's kind of strange. But all the player boards were nice and flat.
Yeah.
So this to me is, I'm probably going to give it a 9.5. I think
I'm totally a 9.5.
It's a beautiful. It does take up a lot of space on your table. We played 3-player, and I'm not sure if we could fit a 4th on this table.
It plays up to 5.
Yeah, so it's definitely going to require some auxiliary boards if tables to play it for us with this table. So
I think 3 though. I think this might go more into gameplay, but I think 3 played really well. Yeah. I think 5 would be. It'd be tough. Anyway.
We didn't mention the coins, really. But
that's true, too.
Those were an add-on.
Yeah.
The ones that come in the game are cardboard if you don't have the nicer version. So really the only 2 major differences are these metal ships and the coins being metal.
And the coins work for Scythe and this game. Yeah, so if you have the coins for Scythe, you could interchange them.
Yeah, they're the same coins.
Yeah, they're the same coins.
That were add-ons for Scythe. So, yeah, I definitely think this is a 9.5 game.
I think so, too. 9.5, awesome.
All right, so moving on to theme. So, the theme of this is it's all set in the same world as Scythe. It's basically taking, Miranda does not like Scythe. We love Scythe.
Yes.
Miranda's not a fan, and the reason she doesn't like Scythe is she doesn't like combat, which is part of the game, and she doesn't like area control, which is part of the game.
Yeah.
This is Scythe as far as the play of the Scythe without area control and without combat.
Yeah.
So we're going to try to convince her to play this.
And I think we can.
Because I think it has elements she will like. As far as the look, the art is just as gorgeous, as Scythe. And I think you get more of it because the cards have...
Because you got the card art, you got the tile art, so where instead of a standard board.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. There seems to be more artwork involved.
And there's a lot of clever usage of other material from games.
There's some Easter eggs in it. Yeah, so there's a Cloudspire mention. And we saw
it was Charterstone.
Yeah, Charterstone.
And there's a card right here, Scythe. It's one of the items you can actually get. So there's definitely references to some of the other games. There's probably ones that I even missed.
Yeah, we just even seen. And we haven't went through all the cards either. Yeah. So.
Yeah, there's one that I've got over an item that looks like the cat from Men in Black. It has the medallion.
Oh, the medallion?
It references the medallion, but I'm not sure if that's really an Easter egg or if I'm just implying it.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think this has got some really beautiful art. Mm-hmm. I mean, to me, this thematically... there's not really a backstory to Scythe. I mean, they have a little bit of an introduction, but...
I think they really delved more into lore with Scythe when you bought the really big boxes. There's a beautiful art book that you could have gotten. It really dived into that. But, just assume that it's all connected because it is the same universe. So I think that thematically, it's the artwork carries it. Other than that, there's really no text on the cards.
Well, there is in the rule book a little.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying, like on the cards, there's no thematic text that it just tells you what the cards do.
Yeah,
that's all they do. So there's really not a whole lot of theme written into the tiles of the cards. So, but the art's so good.
Yeah. So given what you get, I'm probably going to give this a 9 as far as theme.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's saying a lot because usually we look at, the rule book, we look at the cards, we look at the tiles, we look at, what story is it telling above and beyond the artwork. But the artwork's so good that it really carries it.
And it definitely feels integrated into the Scythe
For
universe.
Sure.
So yeah, I think 9 is
I think
score.
So too. Yep.
All right. Moving on to the rule book. So the rule book is very much like the Scythe rule book as far as the color schemes and all the lettering.
Even the feel of the rule book.
The feel of it, yeah. It's got that nice... A lot of rule books that Stonemaier produces have the nice...
the linen finish to the rule book.
More than just a linen finish, though. It feels like it's almost like a plastic book with a linen finish. And this is my favorite kind of texture.
It just feels so durable.
It feels good in your hand. Now, the read of the rules was a little bit dry. I mean, there's nothing to really liven it up.
Right.
But it does a good job teaching the rules. But it walks you through every possible scenario of every action in the rules.
And then it does some silly definitions too.
Yes, some of them are a little overdone. I mean, like or.
Yeah.
So one of the actions they define is or. What or means. So I think they took it a little too far. But yeah, I mean, everything you might see on a card is literally detailed in the book in excruciating detail. Now they have iconography on the book, but honestly, your cheat sheet has all the iconography.
Cheat cards on it.
These cheat cards were great. Mm-hmm. They had all the actions in a shorthand. Mm-hmm. These are really very helpful.
Out a lot.
And
I didn't have to ever ask to look at the rule book. I used these, and it helped out great.
Yeah, we never had any questions once we got into the gameplay on how it worked. That discard, I think, was the only one where...
Yeah, because we didn't know if it actually left the game or if it just went to the used pile of cards.
Yeah. Now, some things, if you trash them, they got removed from the game.
But I don't think we saw anything that trashed from once we had it, it was either discarded or it was in play.
Yeah.
We didn't ever have to get rid of anything. So
yeah. So... Yeah, I think the rulebook did an outstanding job teaching the game.
And it didn't take that long either. No. Usually, when Randy reads through, he reads through it, then we play and learn. And that could take upwards of 30 to 40 minutes. It didn't take that long.
This was 16 pages. There's no cover, so it goes straight into the backstory for a few blurbs, and then the overall goal and the contents right on the front page. So, the setup is really clear. It has a nice picture on the illustration of the setup.
And there is an automata deck, like most of the Stonemaier games.
And that's in a separate book.
So which is great.
Yeah, that one is 8 pages in length and similar. Doesn't really have
I'm really looking forward to trying this one out solo.
Yeah, so they do have an achievement sheet as well, where you can write down your stats as you go as far as who won and your goals. Yeah, there's a little story and pictures on the back that looks like kind of old pictures, but they're really showing modern.
Well, again, it's that same idea. Where you have that steampunk technology pre-World War I.
World War I into a kind of a farmland.
Yeah.
So I think the rulebook does a really good job. I'll give it an 8. I think it's a fine rulebook. I just think it goes a little overboard on some of the descriptions. I think some of that could have been pulled out into back section if you have a reference, if you have a question about a term.
So in a dictionary.
And probably it would have been nice just to have, those keywords like bolded on the cards. So you could say, oh, this is the keyword.
And I think that's just a little finesse. I think it was very effective and it did its job.
Yes. So moving on to gameplay. So you start the game, you've got a player board, and you have 2 cards which are randomly assigned to you. They're paired. So
just like Scythe, where you had your companion and the character, this has the same thing.
So, they have a color scheme to them, but that doesn't tie to your player color, because mine are red background, but I'm playing the blue. These are just randomly assigned. And then your mech, it goes with your player board, and the player boards have variable player powers. Mm-hmm. So mine, for example, whenever I acquired a card, it immediately went into my available cards to play. So this plays with more of it's not really a deck builder per se, because all your cards are face up on the table. It's definitely
a tableau builder.
But it's a tableau builder, but you can trigger playing cards during the game.
Tableau builder, engine building. So
you play cards, but you don't have to worry about, am I going to get it in my hand? It's always there for you to play.
And everything's visible, which was an interesting part. So I could always see what other people have and what they're going to do eventually, if not immediately. Yeah. So I thought that was a good point.
You can see their cards, but the font is pretty small.
Pretty tiny. But the fact that once a couple playthroughs and you know what other people's cards are, you can see what they're going to do.
Yeah. It's definitely one where you can kind of say, strategize, knowing they're going to probably go here. And there is some blocking you can do.
A little bit,
it's very limited, but no one can share a space. So...
and especially early game, because you're discovering tiles. So there might be a really good tile that allows you to do an action. And that's the only one revealed. That's where the blocking can help in.
And the goal of the game is very much like Scythe. You've got tracks that you can get stats you can collect. if you accomplish certain goals in the game, and you're trying to play your stars to that. And the game will end when somebody gets their 4th star. You get one more round around the table, and that's the final game. And then you tally up your score. But the different actions on your turn, you have basically 3 actions. They've simplified and streamlined.
Yeah.
Scythe.
But it's still similar to Scythe in the fact that you can only do one section.
Yes.
Where like, you can, whatever action you pick the Scythe, that was blocked the following turn.
Yeah.
Same idea here.
Yeah. So in this one, you have 3 different actions and a refresh action.
Right.
So the 3 actions you can choose are move, which is very clear. I can take my mech and move it up to 3 spaces away that are connected. The other action is I can play a card, which when I play a card, I have cards that I've accumulated to the left of my board, which are ones that are available to me to play. And then whenever I play it, it goes into my active pool, which is on the right side of my board, and they stay there until I refresh ultimately, or there's ways to get them back by rescuing cards. But yeah, basically anything that I play goes over to this side. I get an immediate benefit of whatever stat increase.
The core
yeah.
action.
And those are, there's two different stats. One is guile and one is strength.
Power.
Yeah,
something like that.
So you can move those up to 10 maximum, but you get, for each card you'll play, you'll get 1 typically, but there are ways to strengthen the cards to get more. And then some of the actions on them, which will trigger, are triggered based upon workers. So I have to have a worker that matches the color on the card. If I do, when I play the card to my active area, I can assign that worker immediately and trigger its benefit of that ability on that card.
And even those abilities have the ability to be upgraded based off of other actions you've done previously.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of manipulation based upon choices you make during the game and what you choose to focus on upgrading that will help with other stats and their abilities in the game. So, the last action is gather, which basically is taking the action of the space that you're on. So at the beginning of the game, you start in refresh mode, and this one's kind of interesting difference from Scythe.
True.
On your first turn after refreshing, you get to move to a zone where you can activate all 3 of those actions. Normally, you would have to block something every turn when you move. This one, you actually can, on your first play, and every time after you refresh, you will have an ability to take your next turn where you can trigger all 3 options of move, play, and gather. So, and then after that, you have to, on your next turn, move up to block 1. So, depending on how many cards you have and how much interaction.
Workers you have left over and things like, and even if you're within range to be able to move and gather.
Yeah.
So stuff like that, it all determines whether you want to refresh or continue moving through those 2 actions.
Where, one of the things that was really nice about
helped his.
Yeah, because I had so many cards that I kept gaining that I didn't have to refresh for you guys. It's refreshed at least 4 or 5 times.
3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
Before he ever had to.
Yeah, I think I only refreshed twice the entire game.
Yeah, that was a really neat ability.
Yeah, and then but the abilities are all powerful. They're different but powerful. But all of them are powerful. I can't say yet whether any of them are unbalanced. I definitely felt like mine was a good power.
It really was a good power,
but I don't know if it was overpowered. At this point, because Dwight had a really good power where he was able to get a lot of coin just by burning tokens, which is another thing when you move. The first few areas you move into are exposed face up.
Right.
But then as you go throughout the game, the later tiles further away from the starting play board are all face down, and they have an exploration token on top.
Yep. Very similar to Scythe, except for instead of getting that exploration card, you basically just use these. Like Dwight's ability was really nice. I just built them up so that I could get a glory token eventually.
Yeah.
So
I did miss those choose your own adventure style
and
cards.
Those were funny too.
Yeah, so I did miss those, but they are not part of this game. So the tokens are one of the many things that you can use to trigger playing a star. So now one thing that's unique on this one is you don't just get to play a star. You have to actually take an ability
Yeah.
to get your star once you have earned it.
You have to do a boost action to be able, then, if you meet the conditions, play a star.
And there's only a handful of spaces on the board that will let you do that. The good news is there's plenty of them that you can't block them, really.
Right. Yeah, there was at least 3, right?
There's
Not
four
Yeah.
out right now.
Now, they were all the 3 were fairly close to each other, and I had the 1 over here.
Yeah.
But there was never an issue of blocking.
Right, but that's all random, too. I mean,
right, that's true.
It just was a random distribution of the tiles. So the goal is to try to get your stuff to get onto the star to play one, but you can't. If you get there, you can only play 1. So you might have qualified for 2 or 3, but you can only play 1, and then you have to kind of reset to get to the point where you need to be. Now you could just sit there, refresh, and get all your cards back, and then that would let you play one.
Yeah, but that's going to another 2 turns.
Right, exactly. You're giving your opponents actions to be able to do it. So technically, you could just complete all 4 of your tasks that you need to win and then go set on a star for the rest of the game, but it's not as easy as that sounds.
Yeah, I don't know if that would work or not.
There's a couple stars that are pretty easy grabs. Yeah. You've got basically ones where you could gather tokens, and since they're readily available on the board,
5 of these, or 7 workers,
or having 7 workers. So in this game, since Dwight had a bunch of abilities around tokens, he was immediately going for the tokens. You followed suit and followed him. I had really no competition for the spaces.
But you were getting workers quickly.
So I was just going for the workers because there was no tokens that was going to be, it wasn't worth all 3 of us going for those.
Right.
So I just went over and grabbed workers, which was the other option because you cannot do both. They're on the same space. So if you play a star, you can either get the workers or the tokens. The other things that you can do are collect cards. That one's a pretty easy one to get too.
Those are the 2 that we did.
That you can go and there's spaces, plenty of spaces on the board to grant cards. But the thing is, cards will come in and out of your play area. So when you get cards have multiple purposes in this game. So you can play them for the stats that they give you on the increase of your power and your guile. You can use them for their ability on there, but there's different types of cards. There's item cards, there's quest cards, and there are meteorites. And they you can play them as actions, but you can also use action abilities that will let you tuck them under your board, and that removes them out of your pool of cards so they don't count towards your goal.
Or what you have in control.
Yeah, they call it control the cards.
Yeah.
But they will give you ongoing benefits depending on how you play them. So, for example, the quest cards are very important for in-game scoring because if your value of your individual stars is basically multiplied as a factor by how many of those cards you've completed, they'll increase your value of your stars from 5 all the way up to 10 potentially. So you can only have 4 of each of these types of cards upgraded into play. So you only have 4 quests completed. The other ones are item. When you play an item, basically the item still does the same effect, but it doesn't require a worker, and it's an ongoing permanent effect.
So it happens all the time.
Right.
You don't have to play it anymore. It just goes into effect.
So it just stays out there. Plus, it's worth victory points at the end of the game because it has a coin value. Everything's converted to coins at the end of the game.
And usually the neat thing about the item cards, too, is when you put a meeple on it to do that extra ability, there's even a third one that's written just above it. Like I had one that gives me an additional move ability.
Yeah.
So that was really powerful if you do it right.
Right. And then the bottom ones are meteorites. So meteorites, you're basically going to tuck them under the bottom, and they will give you a one-time perk when you play them that usually gives you coin or
off of something else.
And a max of 3 coin. But each time you play another one, it triggers all the ones you've played.
But again, you can only do a maximum of 4.
Yeah, but the other perk they give you is there's a lot of cards that have their stats ability.
Yes.
And some of their action abilities are enhanced when you have 2 or one or two of those tuck cards.
And the meteorites really looked at each other too, just for what you had in control.
Yeah.
Like I had one that gave me an extra guile for every meteorite you had in control. I had one that gave me power for every meteorite I had in control. So if I did it right and I got those 2 meteorites melded, is what it's called underneath my board, I could have. It just would have been amazing. I just never got it.
Yeah.
It was cool.
Yeah, I mean, Dwight got the one that was based on those tokens. It
gave him maxed out his power every time he did it.
Yeah. And but he never really took advantage of that power. I mean, that was because the other thing the power is good for is every time you expose one of these new tiles and flip it over, it gets assigned an amount of corruption tokens. That's what those wooden numbers are for. There's a bag you draw them randomly out of, and it gives you a threshold you have to draw. So
and we've seen a minimum of 5, but upwards of 8.
Yeah, and when you draw them, you keep drawing until you break that threshold. So you might, even though it says it's 5 or 8, it might be
9,
7 or whatever. It depends on what you draw. If you draw 5 on your first draw, then you stop on the 5.
But it might be a 4, but then you draw 5, so now it's 9.
Exactly. So it's going to be some level of threshold, and then you to clear that. Underneath that, there's a really nice ability. But you have to clear that corruption off to make it viable. But every corruption token you clear off is 2 victory points at the end of the game, 2 coin.
And the corruption is equal, equates to your guile and your power.
Right.
So if you have enough power for the orange, you have to have enough guile for the green or the turquoise looking.
Right.
So. And
the other thing is 2 of the stats on the final where you place your stars are based upon those corruption. So there's one corruption token that's 20, where you had to have totally maxed out both your teal and your orange, and you clear that out, and underneath is another star, so you can play it immediately, basically, because one of the cards anyway that you can use to trigger that ability is your starter card, and all of us had the same one, where it lets you trigger whatever you uncovered whenever you.
And actually my ability, I could have took advantage of it, but I didn't think of it. But my ability could have beat that even quicker because it reduces both requirements by 1.
Wow!
So I could have beat it with 18 and not 20.
Oh, okay. But yeah, I ended up maxing out both of mine and got up there. Anyway, it was clear I was going for that because I was not using any of my. I was maxed out on green for most of the game and kept wasting green. Because I had just coincidentally bad planning. I had a bunch of green cards.
All your cards were giving you green.
Exactly. So, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting way that you use all the cards in this game. I like the way they've made it.
They all play off each other.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting that kind of, depending on which direction you go, but no matter which direction, they all play off of the other parts of the game.
Well, they do, but then you also are going to have to give up those cards throughout the game if you want to complete these other goals. So I had some really nice ones that paired really nicely, but I had to give them up. And then I thought, what happened to that card? It's like, oh, yeah, you used it a while ago. So, I didn't have those, so I had to find another way because, the starters give you some of those actions you need, but not all of them. And, I had to go and find cards to do it. But then if you found one and then you used it for some other ability that removed it from your deck, then you had to go find it again.
And another really nice element to this game that I liked a lot is because you would think it's based off a lot of luck because you're waiting on the cards to flop. But there are spaces that allow you to do a sweep. It allows you to get rid of all the cards that are face up and replace them.
Yeah.
So it's not hard to find the cards you really are looking for.
Right. And there's also ones that let you draw 2 from the top of the deck and keep one and burn the other.
So there's a lot of ways to cycle through this deck to find cards that you're really looking for.
Yeah.
That's a really good element to the game.
Yeah. So, this feels distinctly different from Scythe.
Absolutely.
It feels like
it's a different game.
Yeah. It's definitely not. You're not your father's Scythe.
Yeah, there's some similarities. You can definitely see that where it's inspired by Scythe, but it's a very different game.
So, in this, if you are like Miranda, where you did not like Scythes because of combat,
or the area that control,
one of the ways, that you can score stars, or the area control aspects, this takes that out completely. The only area control is I'm sitting on this space. You can't use this one space. But there's so
but
many
even
other
there's ways to
spaces.
mitigate that because you can use adjacent tiles.
Yeah.
So so if he might be on it, but I might be on a tile that's adjacent to it that allows me to use an adjacent tile.
There's also cards that say use an action where one of your opponents is sitting.
Exactly. So even then, it's not that limiting.
Yeah. So this does not have very much, take that. There's actually no take that. And there's very little blockage in this. So it feels distinctly different, but it still feels rewarding. And when you get those combos going, it's.
I agree. But I guess if there was a criticism for some people, it's not for me, but if there was, is that there isn't really any player interaction because of that, because the actions aren't limiting that much.
Yeah. So, I mean, as far as the fun factor I had on this, I really like the combos on this. I like the thought. I had to put a lot of thought into getting my combos to work, and I as soon as I would mess one up, I know it, and I was like, "Well, dummy, I could have done it this way," and I could have gotten the points before.
Yeah.
There's so many things I did where I knew I could have done a better job,
and that's where multiple gameplays will reward that because once we kind of learn that, it'll be. I think more strategy on how to get to where we're going quicker.
Yeah.
And who can do that better. So I like that.
I'm probably at an 8.5 at the moment with this, but I could see this going up to a 9. I think
I'm already at a 9.
You're already at a 9.
I mean, combination with the artwork, which is fantastic. I love the action selection on the board and how it does limit what action you can do, but it's not terrible. And then the fact that as you do your actions on the map, you're not limited because there's lots of ways to cycle through the decks, lots of ways to do multiple actions on your cards. It's just such a well thought out game.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost elegant in its design because it's very well thought out, which, that's what you kind of expect from Jamie Stonemaier anymore.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's just such a good designer. So I'm definitely a 9.
All right. Well, that's our thoughts on expeditions. So if you've had an expedition into this game, let us know what you thought of it.
Grumble.
Yeah. And, hopefully you'll be going to Gen Con and we'll be seeing you here shortly.
Might be one of the games we bring with us.
Maybe. I'm not sure. This is another big one. I've already committed to bringing Marrakesh and Battlestar. So
I might bring my copy, though.
Okay. Yours already got like a hole in it or something.
True.
Yeah, the boxes are a bit dinged when we got them, which is a little disappointing. But I've had much worse because I just got my copy of.
I had the damaged lid. I gave him the good lid.
Yeah, I just got my Lagrange.
Yeah.
Wait till we get that review.
Oh yeah.
Interesting tale there. So. So something to look for. So, you better subscribe so you can find out what happened with my Lagrange order. All right. But if you are going to Gen Con, make sure you look out for us and let us know what you've got planned for Gen Con. If you got some games you're on the lookout for, let me know because I might snag them before you. No.
What?
Or you want to
and then gloat.
Yeah, exactly. Grab it and say no. So if you got any events that you think are really going to be fun, let us know because
maybe we have time and we can join you.
Yeah, that'd be great. So all right, until next time.
Bye.